Hey, it's Chris. Today I'm going to walk you through whether or not you should buy the brand new iPad Pro or whether you should save your hard-earned money. I'm aiming to make this pretty thorough, pretty in-depth, and I want to get you a definitive answer by the end of the video. But first, let's take a minute to understand why the 2021 iPad Pro isn't just another iPad, despite its having the same exact appearance, on the outside at least, as the last generation of iPad Pro. The iPad Pro is now the only iPad with a Thunderbolt port and optional 5G. And a rear camera setup, which is only used by a select few, did get a little bit better, while the front true depth camera got much better than it used to be, and also picked up a really useful new tracking feature called Center Stage. And no, we don't have a new Apple Pencil, although there really wasn't anything wrong with the V2. Gamers are going to love the fact that the PS5 and Xbox controllers are fully supported, including haptics. And perhaps even cooler, you can now get 16 gigs of RAM. And this year, if you have a tree out back that grows money, you're in luck because you can upgrade your internal storage up to 2 terabytes. Of course, the show-stopping new feature this year is the Mini LED Liquid Retina XDR display, which gets really, really bright, but is only available on the 12.9-inch model. So clearly, there's a lot to potentially get really excited about, but what do these features mean to you, practically speaking, in the real world? Well, before you whip the Apple Card out, let's just take a minute here and cut through all the hype, cut through all the excitement, and truly consider whether or not this is the right purchase for you. Also, if you're liking the vibe of this video so far, why not take this opportunity to get yourself subscribed if you're not already, so you don't miss my upcoming unboxing and review. All right, let's start by breaking down the actual benefits of the Liquid Retina Mini LED display, which is available on that 12.9-inch. If you would like to really enjoy HDR content on an iPad, then go ahead and hit that buy button. Because this Mini LED display will display colors on par with, or in some cases even better than, some OLED panels. And impressively, it'll also get even brighter than some HDR TVs. Now, if you're a professional photographer or you do any kind of professional video editing, this screen is a good reason to hit the buy button because you're gonna be able to pick out more detail in your work. If you're not a photo or video pro and you don't care about watching HDR content, even though I gotta tell you, HDR often does make a bigger, more dramatic difference to a lot of people than just raw resolution, then save your money. Because you'll still be fine with the actually impressive LCD display on the 11-inch model, which is unchanged from the previous iPad Pro. And yes, you can bet I'm gonna slap a paper-like screen protector on the new Mini LEDs because my Apple Pencil simply can't live without it. Seriously, that paper-like texture when I'm using the Apple Pencil has become addicting. All right, let's talk about that new Thunderbolt port next, which looks exactly the same as the USB-C port. And actually, it'll work just fine with most USB-C accessories. It's just that it's much, much cooler. Again, this feature is going to mostly appeal to pro photo and video heads who would really benefit from faster transfer speeds. How fast? Like quadruple the speed fast. So we're talking about 40 gigabits per second versus somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 gigabits per second on most USB-Cs. The Thunderbolt port can drive up to a 6K display. Do you own a 6K display? If you do, congratulations, you're rich. But if you don't, that's another indicator that maybe you want to save your money. But here's my perspective on the Thunderbolt. If you don't earn money from snapping photos or from editing videos, then save your money right now. Or should you? Because if you're like me, you suspect Apple might have some killer iPadOS features to debut at WWDC. Like perhaps real external display support, not just mere mirroring, or maybe bringing pro apps like Final Cut Pro or Logic Pro to the iPad Pro. If any of those things become reality, then we have a much more compelling reason to want to spend extra money for that Thunderbolt. And now we come to that M1 chip. Look, literally nobody was complaining that the last generation of iPad Pros was too slow. And that was without the M1. So why does 50% faster performance and an 8-core GPU and 40% faster graphics actually matter in real life? Well, until and unless iPadOS gets some crazy updates, I really don't know. What I do know is that the M1 is efficient, more efficient than the A series chips that the last gen iPad Pros were on. And that should translate into noticeably better battery life, or what Apple is just calling all-day battery life. So long story short, if you really want to future-proof, i.e. you want to buy an iPad Pro and hold on for dear life, or if you just would practically benefit from more battery life, then buy it like it's hot. Otherwise, the M1 is really just better than what was already the best. So if you bought last year's iPad Pro, then you're probably good to go in terms of your performance. Yo. It was weird there for a while when the iPad Air was so close in specs to the iPad Pros, but those days are over. All right, now that improved front-facing TrueDepth camera is actually pretty compelling here, despite the fact that it still sits on the left of me when I have it mounted on a Magic Keyboard. Annoying. The new center stage feature, which automatically centers you during video calls, is going to be absolutely awesome, not just for FaceTime, but as it turns out, for third-party apps as well. So if you're one of the people that has increased their time using Zoom or FaceTime recently, then this center stage feature combined with a new 12 megapixel front-facing camera is a good reason to buy. And just for some context, the last iPad Pro had a potato-worthy 7 megapixel front shooter. Now, if the idea of portrait mode selfies from your iPad appeals to you, you know, like being able to change the blurriness of your background or playing around with different lighting effects, then by all means, go ahead and hit the buy button. But if you have an iPhone with portrait mode capability, then, you know, what's the point? Now, at this point, since I haven't actually reviewed this, which again, I will be unboxing and reviewing it, so get yourself subscribed. But at this point, not having tested it, I'm just guessing that that Face ID, that face unlock, might get a little bit better with this ultra wide 180 degree field of vision, and you might be able to actually unlock your iPad from more angles. Now, if you're a gamer, or maybe a wannabe gamer, this is the time to listen up, because the iPad is already a sleeping gaming monster. Not so much because of Apple Arcade, but more so because of Xbox Cloud Gaming, which just went into iOS beta testing today, and services like Google Stadia, with its console quality games which are available through Safari. So now that you have an M1 chip, which allows you to game on your iPad with console quality graphics at high frame rates, and now that iPadOS 14.5 brings support for Xbox and PS5 gaming controllers, complete with haptic feedback, the iPad Pro, especially the 12.9 inch with that gorgeous display, is starting to look seriously interesting as a more serious gaming device. So I'd say if gaming is an important aspect for you, especially when you're on the go, then there are real reasons to consider upgrading this year. But of course, if you're really not interested in gaming at the highest levels an iPad can game, because of course other iPads can game just fine, then you really don't need to upgrade. This year, creative professionals can truly spend out the waz to procure 2 terabytes of storage, which also goes hand in hand with that 16 gigabytes of RAM. And yeah, those are truly impressive numbers for an iPad. So to put this in context, let's talk about it like this. My Final Cut Pro libraries on my Mac are almost always larger than 2 terabytes individually for a single YouTube video. Granted, professional cameras, multiple angles, whatever. But 2 terabytes can disappear really fast for a creative professional. So it's definitely nice to not have to drag around an external storage drive with you. Like, I remember how nice it was when I decided to upgrade my Mac to 4 terabytes of internal storage to not have to do that. But let's face it, Apple's storage upgrades are really expensive. So if you want to save some money and you don't mind the extra bulk when you're on the go, then I would say save some money, get some external storage. Now, when it comes to that 16 gigs of RAM, I am interested to see what WWDC brings in terms of what in the world would be able to utilize that 16 gigabytes of RAM. Because right now, that's overkill for everything on an iPad. But I hope that changes. I and many others would love to see apps like Final Cut Pro finally land on the iPad, at least on the iPad Pro. All right, last but not least here, let's talk about 5G on the iPad Pro, which is cool, I guess, if you want to do things like have a meeting on the go, or maybe you're late and you want to tune in for that meeting in the cab ride or something. There's probably somebody out there with a great use case, but the thing is, a lot of people are just going to end up tethering to their iPhone's LTE or 5G, you know? So in that case, what's the point? All right. That's it for this video. I hope that it was useful. I hope there was a lot of value in going through the practicality of all these different features and what it might mean in terms of your own personal upgrade cycle and spending or saving your cash. So if it was helpful, let me know and get yourself subscribed for the unboxing, the review, the tips, the apps, the accessories that I cover anyways on this channel to help you get the most out of all your Apple devices, not just your iPads and your iPad Pros. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Later.